A few words about these United States population statistics. All figures listed below for years before 1992 are U.S. Census Bureau figures as per the source files. Where there were an assortment of figures for a specific year, we averaged them. 1992 was an estimate. Years after 1992 are our estimates on a predicted growth rate of 1%, as the average growth rate of all the averaged figures from 1972 to 1992 was exactly 1%. The raw data from which we took these figures is appended as footnote #2. All dates not given are presumed to be July the 1st, as it is the official date given by the U.S. Census Bureaus over the years, except where otherwise noted. Dates are for footnoted figures only. Why and how you should use these tables given the rapid inflation that took place sometimes over the past few decades. You might be aware that if a report said a certain monetary figure was up 10% during one decade, it was prudent to check to see if the figures took the inflationary trends into account to tell you the actual value a figure in one year might represent would actually be less than figures which counted more value in lesser numbers of dollars in the previous decade. Thus you would be wise to consult a table of price indices, such as the file price10.txt released in 1993, before your evaluation of such figures is complete. The same is true of population figures, which are going up a certain amount every year, in a very similar manner to those price index figures, only not quite as fast, in most cases. What started this report very recently? There was a report issued on education, which stated something on the order of people in the United States are receiving 10% more of a certain level of education than they were a decade before. The years and the exact figures have been altered to protect those responsible from embarrassment. For example, let us presume the report stated, graduation from grade school was up 5% from 1981 to 1991. You would think from this report that the average kid had 5% greater chances of getting a grade school diploma in 91 than in 81. But it turns out that it was just the opposite because the population was 1.097352 times larger in 91 than it had been in 1981. Which is about 10% larger, thus in a real education sense, in the same way the monetary reports are given in real dollars or constant dollars. Education was actually moving in just the opposite direction, and thus was DOWN about 5% instead of UP about 5% from 1981 to 1991. Remember, these were not from years quoted in the report and the figures were not exactly 5% or 10% respectively, nor the diploma referred to was not a grade school diploma, but they are pretty close to being exact, in terms of the percentages in years, much closer than you might expect. Asterisk 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 here is a footnote explanation of how to be more exact asterisk 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 to be exact. One would have to do demographic analysis of the specific portions of the population of the ages at which such diplomas were conferred, as it would be irrelevant from a realistic point of view to measure the population on whole basis if you were only concerned with people who were of the age to receive kindergarten diplomas between 1981 and 1991, or whatever ages and a whatever kind of diploma. Thus these figures are not as precise as they could be, but still given the trends of population and education, it is obvious that the trend in one is not following the direction of the other. A further look at the U.S. Census figures averaged below will be sufficient to inform you that previous generations that were measured had even greater growth rates than 10%, so that the number of people getting any specific degrees or diplomas in the following decade should have been going up even more. Asterisk 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 in the tables below, the first line shows the base year, or the year in question, labeled year. ###. So if you want a chart based on 1980 as the base year, you simply search/find year 1980 to find the relevant portions. Once you have located the table for year ###, you can see comparisons of that year to any other year by looking up the year you wish to compare to in the left column. The sample comparison is 1991, presented below. You will note a 10-year comparison looks like. Year/1991 1991/year growth percent 1981 0.911285 1.09735 0.9031%. This means a 1991 statistic would have to be shrunk to about 91% of its size to be relevant to a comparable 1981 statistic. On the other hand, a 1981 statistic would have to be enlarged, this time by about 10% to be useful in comparison to 1991. 1991 is the latest year for which we have hard statistics, so a copy of that year is presented first for your immediate use, with year back to colonization following, starting with estimates for 2009 when the United States population should reach 300 million. You may note some fluctuations in these figures, because we used all reports from the major media and almanacs of the periods our researchers could find. If you have access to any figures which do not appear in the footnoted materials, please send them to us for inclusion in the next edition. We are also working on a database that will enable to show fluctuation patterns of this nature, which will be based on massaged figures presented at later dates by the Census Bureau. These will be an example of the difference between the figure we can expect on an entirely here and now basis, and those which we would probably not see about today's events until a decade or two have passed. Asterisk 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 by year equals BSEYAR asterisk 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 I year equals year in comparison to the base year 1991 year by year /I year by year growth percent year /1991 1991 year growth percent 1991 1.00000 1.00000 1.2505% 1990 0.987649 1.012505 0.7224% 1989 0.980565 1.019 1.20 1.1077% 1988 0.969823 1.031116 0.8834% 1987 0.961331 1.040225 0.5594% 1986 0.955983 1.046043 1.3056% 1985 0.943663 1.05970 0.7673% 1984 0.936477 1.06783 0.8149% 1983 0.928907 1.07653 0.9737% 1982 0.919949 1.0870170 0.9508% 1981 0.911285 1.09735 0.9031% 1980 0.903129 1.1072622 2.2701% 1979 0.883082 1.132398 1.042% 1978 0.874303 1.143769 0.9896% 1977 0.865735 1.155088 0.9103% 1976 0.857925 1.165603 0.8394% 1975 0.850783 1.175387 0.904 2% 1974 0.843160 1.186015 1.1568% 1973 0.8335 1.199735 0.9427% 1972 0.825734 1.211044 0.7426% 1971 0.819647 1.22038 1.4697% 1970 0.807774 1.2379690 0.6966 0.68%, 1969 0.802185 1.2465960.8565%, 1968 0.795372 1.2572731 1.5090%, 1967 0.783548 1.276246 0.9949%, 1966 0.775829 1.288944 1.0575%, 1965 0.767711 1.302574 1.130%, 1964 0.759132 1.317293 1.5537%, 1963 0.747519 1.337759 1.4658%, 1962 0.73672 or 1.357368 1.5364%, 1961 0.725572 1.37822 2.158.6%, 1960 0.710240 1.407974 to 1.6655%, 1959 0.722269 1.3845254.3080%, 1958 0.692439 1.444170 2.1130%, 1957 0.678111 1.474685 1.9895%, 1956 0.664883 1.504024 2.1231%, 1955 0.651061 1.535955 1.4496%, 1954 0.641758 1.55822 2.1573%, 1953 0.628206 1.591836 1.2298%, 1952 0.620574 1.611411 1.6814%, 1951 0.610312 1.638505 1.6233%, 1950 0.60056 1.665 103 1.4265%, 1949 0.592117 1.6888 56 1.7790%, 1948 0.581767 1.718901 1.8242%, 1947 0.571345 1.750257 72.632%, 1946 0.586789 1.704189 1945 0.568722 1.75832864.4754%, 1944 0.534135 1.872187 to 0.3437%, 1943 0.535977 1.865753 0.6562%, 1942 0.532482 1.877990 0.6633%, 1941 0.528974 1.890453 to 5.6614%, 1940 0.560718 1.783428 0.0381%, 1939 0.519001 1.92678 0.8126%, 1938 0.514817 1.942438 0.7762%, 1937 0.510852 1.957516 0.6029%, 1936 0.507790 1.969317 0.5244%, 19 1935 0.5051411.9796444 to 3.03 64%. 1934 0.52095919535 4.6271%. 1933 0.4979202.0083541.3921%. 1932 0.4910842.0363113 to 0.2051%. 1931 0.4920932.0321370.8886%. 1930 0.4877592.0501941.012.6%. 1929 0.4828692.0709541.1526%. 1928 0.4773672.0948241.216%. 1927 0.4716322.1202971.4086%. 1926 0.4650812.1501631.76667%. 1925 0.4570072.1881501.4465%. 1924 0.4504912.2198011.770%. 1923 0.4265622.2590911.61665%. 1922 0.4356142.2956101.3736%. 1921 0.4297112.3271442.3393%. 1920 0.4198892.3815831.314%. 1919 0.4144432.4128770. 0.7676%. 1918 0.4112862.4313990. 0.3870%. 1917 0.4097002.4408081.327.4%. 1916 0.4433332.4732091.4083%. 1915 0.39871825080381.4458%. 1914 0.39303525443001.9424%. 1913 0.38557259372 1912 0.3780402.6452231.563.4%. 1911 0.3722126865781.8169%. 1910 0.3655782.7353911.87881%. 1909 0.3588392.7867632.008 2%. 1908 0.3517752.84272.1.960%. 1907 0.3450122.8984531.826.4%. 1906 0.33882.42891.9357%. 1905 0.3323903.08518 2.0148%. 1904 0.3258253.0691352.13335%. 1903 0.3190183. 0.134616.8151%, 1902 0.3133131541.8943%, 1901 0.30750633.251972 1900 0.298475.35036 0.6278%, 1899 0.29661333.3713951.7757%, 1898 0.291438 3.43126 1.807.897 0.286263.4932888 1.8396%, 1896 0.281092 3.5575511.8755%, 1895 0.2759173.6242741 0.9114%, 1894 0.2707423.6935481 1.9486%, 1893 0.2655673.7655221 1.9858%, 1892 0.2603963.840298.2.027.6%, 1891 0.2552223.9181652.64665%, 1890 0.2486414.0218601.5328%, 1889 0.2448884.083507 2.0811%, 1888 0.2398954.1684902.1599%, 1887 0.2348234.2585242.2075%, 1886 0.2297514.3525322.259.2%, 1885 0.2467644.450863.3095%, 1884 0.2196444.553658.2.3641%, 1883 0.2145324.6613122.421%, 1882 0.2094604.774181.2.48115%, 1881 0.2043884.8926513.7644%, 1880 0.1969735.0768290 0.9432%, 1879 0.1951335.1247152.146%, 1878 0.1910325.2347122.1913%, 1877 0.1869365.34942.2.246%, 1876 0.1828365.4693862.294.1%, 1875 0.1787365.5948572.3456%, 1874 0.1746395.7260902.443%, 1873 0.1705395.8637632.4635%, 1872 0.1664396.008 to 2.5258%, 1871 0.162338, 5.9947%, 1870 0.153157.6.529244 to 1.0968%, 1869 0.154856.457632 2.1930%, 1868 0.15153226.599 to 462.2394%, 1867 0.14821367470302.2935%, 1866 0.14489069017732.3445%, 1865 0.141717.063584.2.4037%, 1864 0.13824872333712.4599%, 1863 0.13492997.4113032.525%, 1862 0.13160675984392.587%, 1861 0.1282877.7950302.9504%, 1860 0.1246108.0250152.4012%, 1859 0.216888.2177142.762%, 1858 0.1184178.444746.2.84112%, 1857 0.1151458.684678.2.924%, 1856 0.1187488.9386433.0161%, 1855 0.1085989.2082453.1061%, 1854 0.1053279.494 to 583.2056%, 1853 0.1020559.7986093.3118%, 1852 0.198784110.1231183.4252%, 1851 0.29551210.4698584.010.6%, 1850 0.2918897632.3254%, 1849 0.0897431.1429902.7841%, 1848 0.08731.11.453220.2.859%, 1847 0.084888511.780669.2.943.2%, 1846 0.0824581127393.032.4%, 1845 0.0803112.4951443.132.5%, 1844 0.0776012.8865553.228%, 1843 0.075173313.3025803.336.1%, 1842 0.0724727463613.4512%, 1841 0.0703214.220775.3.8105%, 1843 40 0.067738 14.7626562.3861% 1839 0.066160 15.114901 1838 0.064494 15.5052262.6573% 1837 0.062825 15.9172512.7232% 1836 0.061159 16.3507102.7994% 1835 0.059494 16.8084382.8871% 1834 0.057824 17.2937182.9657% 1833 0.056159 17.8065953.0563% 1832 0.054493 18.3508223.1604% 1831 0.052824 18.9307863.466% 1830 0.051054 19.5869212.4653% 1829 0.04982620.069797 2.6804% 1828 0.04852520.607747 10.3427% 1827 0.04397722.7391344 to 4.2314% 1826 0.04592021.7769432.9150% 1825 0.04461922.4117493.026% 1824 0.04331923.0846763.0955% 1823 0.04201823.7992643.1944% 1822 0.04071724.5595053.3102% 1821 0.03941325.372472.2277% 1820 0.03180826.1914292.6573% 1819 0.03719226.887408.2.626% 1818 0.03624027.59350.2.6969% 1817 0.03528928.337678.2.7717% 1816 0.03333729.1231092.850% 1815 0.03338529.95332.2.9343% 1814 0.03243430.832 to 533.0231% 1813 0.03148231.7643283.1039% 1812 0.030335026003.2172% 1811 0.02958233.803887.3.0969% 1810 0.02869434.8507652.9 0.1144%, 1809 0.02788, 135.8664492.8 to 25%, 1808 0.0271636.8787662.9199%, 1807 0.0234737.9555992.9918%, 1806 0.0258139.0911493.0841%, 1805 0.024816040.296740.3.18 to 2%, 1804 0.0245141.5790603.2868%, 1803 0.023285442.945674.3.398%, 1802 0.02254.4051773.518%, 1801 0.021755545.9673713.39999%, 1800 0.0210397.530238.841%, 1799 0.020458548.80985.2.748%, 1798 0.0199150.2244572.826%, 1797 0.019363551.6438663.783.2%, 1796 0.0186583.597662.2.127%, 1795 0.0182695473779.03.0879%, 1794 0.0172256.4280603.1625%, 1793 0.0171858.212604.3.2904%, 1792 0.0166160.12804.03.4024%, 1791 0.0160846281738.173.2296%, 1790 0.0155816418175.941.314%, 1780 0.0110690.698100129.435%, 1770 0.0851817.3953738.472.8%, 1750 0.046432015.38862.329.2845%, 1740 0.035912784640029.4.251.4%, 1720 0.0184940.9202685.811%, 1700 0.009951005.08967719.249%, 1690 0.008341198.55988688.025%, 1670 0.0044423.592493122.0238%, 1650 0.00020005003.5119005 year, 1998 base year, 2009 year buyer / IRIR / buyer growth percent 2009 1.00000 1.00008.2857% 2001 0.923483 1.082857 1.000% 2000 0.914340 1.093685 1.000% 1999 0.905287 1.104622 1.000% 1998 0.896324 1.115668 1.000% 1997 0.887449 1.126825 1.000% 1996 0.878663 1.138093 1.000% 1995 0.869963 1.149475 1.000% 1994 0.861356 1.160960 1.0008% 1993 0.852821 1.17257 1.000% 1992 0.844377 1.184304 0.9295% 1991 0.83660 1.195313 1.2505% 1990 0.826269 1.21026 0.7224% 1989 0.820342 1.219004 1.1077% 1988 0.811355 1.232506 0.8834% 1987 0.804250 1.243394 0.5594% 1986 0.799777 1.250349 1.3056% 1985 0.789469 1.266674 0.7673% 1984 0.783458 1.276393 0.8149% 1983 0.7771 125 1.286795 0.9737% 1982 0.769631 1.299325 0.9508% 1981 0.762382 1.311679 0.9031% 1980 0.755559 1.323524 1979 0.738788 1.353569 1.042% 1978 0.731443 1.367161 0.9896% 1977 0.724275 1.380691 0.9103% 1976 0.717741 1.39326 0.8394% 1975 0.711176 1.404955 0.9042% 1974 0.705388 1.417659 1.1568% 1973 0.697322 1.434058 0.9427% 1972 0.690810 1.447577 0.7426% 1971 0.685717 1.45832 1.4697% 1970 0.675785 1.479761 0.6968% 1969 0.671109 1.490072 0.8565% 1968 0.665409 1.502833 0.5090%, 1967 0.655517, 0.9949%, 1966 0.64906911.057.5%, 1965 0.642268 1.556983 1.130%, 1964 0.635091 1.577 1963 0.625375 1.5990 1.4658%, 1962 0.6163 1.622480 1.5364%, 1961 0.6070 1.647408 2.1586%, 1960 0.594188 1.682970 to 1.6655%, 1959 0.604 1.654940 4.3080%, 1958 0.579296 1.726235 2.1130%, 1957 0.567309 1.762709 1.9895%, 1956 0.556242 1.797778 2.1231%, 1955 0.544678 1.835947 1.4496%, 1954 0.536895 1.862561 2.1573%, 1953 0.525558 1.902741 1.2298%, 1952 0.519173 1.92614 1.6814%, 1951 0.510588 1.958526 1.6233%, 1950 0.502432 1.990318 1.4265%, 1949 0.495366 2.018711 1.7790%, 1948 0.486707 2.054624 1.8242%, 1947 0.477988 2.092104 2.6320%, 1946 0.490909 2.037039 3.1768%, 1945 0.475794 2.1017526.4754%, 1944 0.446858 2.237849 0.3437%, 1943 0.448399 2.230158 0.6562%, 1942 0.445475 2.244793 0.6633%, 1941 0.442540 2.259683 to 5.6614%, 1940 0.469098 2.131752 8.0381%, 1939 0.434196 2.303105 0.8126%, 1938 0.430697 2.321821 0.7762%, 1937 0.427379 2.339844 0.6029%, 1936 0.424818 2.35395 0.5244%, 1935 0.42 2.3602.36624 to 3.0364%. 1934 0.435835 2.294444.6271%. 1933 0.416561.2.400611.392%. 1932 0.410841 to 0.2051%. 1931 0.411685 2.429039 0.8886%. 1930 0.408059 2.450623 1.0126%. 1929 0.403969 2.475438 1.1526%. 1928 0.399366 2.503969 1.216%. 1927 0.394568 2.534418 1.4086%. 1926 0.389087 2.570117 1.7667%. 1925 0.382333 2.615523 1.4465%. 1924 0.376881 2.653357 1.7700%. 1923 0.370326 2.70032 1.6165%. 1922 0.364435 2.743972 1.3736%. 1921 0.359497 2.781664 2.3393%. 1920 0.351280 2.846736 1.314%. 1919 0.346724 2.884142 0.7676%. 1918 0.34408 to 2.906282 0.3870%. 1917 0.342756 2.917529 1.3274%. 1916 0.338266 2.956257 1.4083%. 1915 0.333568 2.99789 1.4458%. 1914 0.328814 3.041234 1.9424%. 1913 0.32 to 5493.103006 1.9857%. 1912 0.316269 1.5634%. 1911 0.311400 1.8169%. 1910 0.3058433.26964 1.8781%. 1909 0.300253310532.0082%. 1908 0.294295 1.9603%. 1907 0.286373.4645557 1.8264%. 1906 0.283460 1.9357%. 1905 0.278078 3.596120 2.0148%. 1904 0.272585 3.6668 576 2.1335%. 1903 0.2668 913.7468 46 1.8151%. 1902 0.262133 3.814857 1.8943%. 1901 0.257260 3.887123 3.0255 5%, 1900 0.2497054.0047280.6278%, 1899 0.2481474.0298711.777%, 1898 0.2438184.1014281.8078%, 1897 0.2394884.1755721.8396%, 1896 0.2351624.2523861.875%, 1895 0.2383334.3321411.911%, 1894 0.2265034.4149451.94886%, 1893 0.2221744.50976.1.9858%, 1892 0.2178484.5903562.0276%, 1891 0.2135194.6834322.6465%, 1890 0.2080144.8073801.5328%, 1889 0.2048734.8810682.0811%, 1888 0.2006964.9826492.1599%, 1887 0.1964535.09027.2.207.5%, 1886 0.1922105.2026362.259.2%, 1885 0.1879645.3201732.309.5%, 1884 0.1837215.4430442.364.1%, 1883 0.1794785.5717252.4214%, 1882 0.1752355.7066382.4815%, 1881 0.1709915.8482473.764%, 1880 0.1647886.0683980.9432%, 1879 0.1632486.1256372.1464%, 1878 0.1598186.2571172.1913%, 1877 0.1563916.3942292.246%, 1876 0.1529616.5376272.294.1%, 1875 0.1495306.6876032.3456%, 1874 0.1461036.8444682.443%, 1873 0.1426737.09030.4635%, 1872 0.1392437.181701.2.525%, 1871 0.1381273.3630945.9947%, 1870 0.1281317.8044888 to 1.2968%, 1870 169 0.129557.718889 2.193%, 1,867.727.8888162 2.2394%, 1,867 0.123998.0648102.2935%, 1,866 0.12121588.24977 2.3445%, 1,865 0.11843988.443191 2.4037%, 1,864 0.11565988.646139 2.4599%, 1,863 0.112888.8588242.525%, 1,862 0.111029.08251002.587%, 1,861 0.1073259.3174972.950%, 1,860 0.1042499.59241 2.4012%, 1,859 0.1180598227382.762%, 1,858 0.099068010.0941112.841%, 1,857 0.096333110.3809052.924%, 1,856 0.029359410.6844733.061%, 1,855 0.0085311.0067323.161%, 1,854 0.08811.348607.3.2056%, 1,853 0.0853811.71241.3.3118%, 1,852 0.082643112.10029113.4252%, 1,851 0.0799612.514753.4.010%, 1,850 0.0768513.0166712.32554%, 1,849 0.0750793193562.7841%, 1,848 0.073045313.6901782.859%, 1,847 0.071011514.0815822.9432%, 1,846 0.068984414.4960253.0324%, 1,845 0.066954414.9356033.1325%, 1,844 0.0649215.4034623.228%, 1,843 0.0628915.9007413.336%, 1,842 0.0608616.43119993.4512%, 1,841 0.0588306.9982723.8105%, 1,840 0.0566717.6459892.38661%, 1,839 0.055349818.0670312.58224%, 1,838 0.053956818.5 0.5335932.657%, 1837 0.052559919.0260902.7232%, 1836 0.0511619.5442102.7994%, 1835 0.049773320.0913382.8871%, 1834 0.0483762.6714002.9657%, 1833 0.046983321.2844483.056%, 1832 0.045589121.934969.3.1604%, 1831 0.0441932.6282073.466%, 1830 0.0427123.412493.4653%, 1829 0.041688523.98968 to 2.6804%, 1828 0.0405962.4059624.6327010.3427%, 1827 0.0367917.1803744.231.4%, 1826 0.038411726.0302552.9150%, 1825 0.037322926.7890463.026%, 1824 0.03624.27.5934043.2955%, 1823 0.0351528.4475603.1944%, 1822 0.0346429.3562863.3102%, 1821 0.0329330.3280363.2277%, 1820 0.0319423.06946.2.6573%, 1819 0.0311532.1388582.62661%, 1818 0.030319329828592.6969%, 1817 0.0319432.69659%, 1818 0.0319432.69659%, 1819 0.0319432.69659%, 1820 0.0319432.69659%, 1821 0.0319432.69659%, 1822 0.0319432.69659%, 1823 0.0319432.69659%, 1824 0.0319432.69659%, 1825 0.0319432.69659%, 1826 0.0319432.69659%, 1827 0.0319432.69659%, 1828 0.0319432.69659%, 1829 0.0319432.69659%, 1830 0.0319432.69659%, 1831 0.0319432.69659%, 1832 0.0319432.69659%, 1833 0.0319432.69659%, 1834 0.0319432.69659%, 1835 0.0319432.69659%, 1836 0.0319432.69659%, 1837 0.0319432.69659%, 1838 0.0319432.69659%, 1839 0.0319432.69659%, 0.0295333.8723842.771%, 1816 0.0287264.8112192.850%, 1815 0.027933035.8035812.9343%, 1814 0.027133436.8541813.0231%, 1813 0.026333837.9683023.1039%, 1812 0.025545339.1467993.2172%, 1811 0.024749040621333.0969%, 1810 0.0240541.6575592.9144%, 1809 0.0233542.8716182.82225%, 1808 0.0268544.0816542.9199%, 1807 0.0220425.3688062.9918%, 1806 0.021461433.0841%, 1805 0.020761488.167202.3.1822%, 1804 0.020212149.699975.3.2868%, 1803 0.019485051.333506.3.3985%, 1802 0.0188457806803.518%, 1801 0.01824537993.399%, 1800 0.0160156.813493.841%, 1799 0.0171558.4280582.74885%, 1798 0.0165760.0339272.826%, 1797 0.0161961.730565.3.783.2%, 1796 0.015609664.0659622.127%, 1795 0.015284654287713.087%, 1794 0.014826667.4491723.1625%, 1793 0.0143769.582260.3.2904%, 1792 0.013914718718053.4024%, 1791 0.013456743171473.2296%, 1790 0.013357671726741.3145%, 1780 0.0924108.41258.429.435%, 1770 0.0712640.32417.083.472.8%, 1750 0.03884,257.45673.8 29.2845%, 1740 0.0304304,392.85153.494.2514%, 1720 0.01546674585.811%, 1700 0.008321201.396369919.249%, 1690 0.0069816537588.025%, 1670 0.0037123.74753.4 base year. 2001 year by year /IRA year /buyer growth percent 2009 1.0828570 0.9234838.2857% 2001 1.0000000 1.0000001.000%, 2000 0.990099 1.0000001.000%, 1999 0.980296 1.02010001.000%, 1998 0.970590 1.0303011.000%, 1997 0.960980 1.040604 1.000%, 1996 0.951466 1.051010 1.000%, 1995 0.942045 1.06152 0.9992%, 1994 0.932725 1.072127 1.0008%, 1993 0.923483 1.082857 1.000%, 1992 0.91434 1.093685 0.9295%, 1991 0.905919 1.103851 1.2505%, 1990 0.894730 1.117655 0.7224%, 1989 0.888313 1.125730 1.1077%, 1988 0.878581 1.138199 0.8834%, 1987 0.870888 1.148253 0.5594%, 1986 0.866044 1.154676 1.3056%, 1985 0.854882 1.169752 0.7673%, 1984 0.848373 1.17827 0.8149%, 1983 0.841515 1.188333 0.9737%, 1982 0.833399 1.199905 0.9508%, 1981 0.825550 1.211314 0.9031%, 1980 0.818162 1.222252 2.270% 1979 0.800001 1.249998 1.042%, 1978 0.792047 1.262551 0.9896%, 1977 0.784286 1.275045 0.9103%, 1976 0.777211 1.286652 0.8394%, 1975 0.770741 1.297453 0.9042%, 1974 0.763835 1.309184 1.1568%, 1973 0.7551 1.324328 0.9427%, 1972 0.748048 1.336813 0.7426%, 1971 0.742533 1.346741 1.4697%, 1970 0.731778 1.366534 0.6968%, 1969 0.726714 1.376056 0.8565%, 1968 0.720543 1.387843 1.5090%, 1967 0.709831 1.408786 0.9949%, 1966 0.702838 1.422802 1.0575%, 1965 0.69548441.4378481.130% 1964 0.68771314540961.5537% 1963 0.677191.4766871.4658% 1962 0.66740814983331.536% 1961 0.65730915213542.158% 1960 0.643420 to 1.6655% 1959 0.65431815283094.308% 1958 0.62729415941492.113% 1957 0.61431416278331.9895% 1956 0.60233016602182.123% 1955 0.58980816954661.4496% 1954 0.58138001.7200442.157.3% 1953 0.569103175715 1.2298% 1952 0.5621901.778758 1.6814% 1951 0.5528941.8086666 1.6233% 1950 0.5446218380261.4265% 1949 0.536410 1.864246 1.7790% 1948 0.527034 1.897411 1.8242% 1947 0.517592 1.932023 1946 0.531584 1.881173.1768% 1945 0.515216 1.9409336.4754% 1944 0.483882.06661 to 0.3437% 1943 0.4855522.0595140 0.6562% 1942 0.482382.0730290 0.6633% 1941 0.479207 2.0867795.6614% 1940 0.507966 1.968638.03881% 1939 0.470173.1268790 0.8126% 1938 0.466383.1441630 0.7762% 1937 0.462790 2.160807 0.6029% 1936 0.4600172.1738330 0.5244% 1935 0.457617 2.1852333 to 3.0364% 1934 0.47194721188814.6271% 1933 0.451075 2.2169 to 1.3921% 1932 0.44488 to 2.247787 to 0.2051% 1931 0.4457 0.7962.2431, 770.8886%, 1930 0.44872.26311001.026%, 1929 0.4374402.2860261.1526%, 1928 0.4324562.312374.1.216%, 1927 0.4272602.340491.4086%, 1926 0.4213262.373460.1.7667%, 1925 0.4140141.2.4153921.4465%, 1924 0.40810450331.1.770%, 1923 0.4101002.493701.6165%, 1922 0.3946312.5340121.3736%, 1921 0.3892842.56882.2.3393%, 1920 0.3803826289131.314%, 1919 0.3754522.6634570, 0.7676%, 1918 0.3725922.6839030, 0.3870%, 1917 0.3711552.6942891.3274%, 1916 0.3662932.7300541.4083%, 1915 0.3612062.7685011.4458%, 1914 0.3560582.88529.1.942%, 1913 0.3492742.8630811.985.7%, 1912 0.3447472.91932.1.5634%, 1911 0.3372022.9655831.8169%, 1910 0.3311853.0194651.87881%, 1909 0.3250793.0761722.082%, 1908 0.3186793.1379491.960%, 1907 0.31253.1994611.826%, 1906 0.3069473.257894.1.9357%, 1905 0.31118.3.32957.2.014.8%, 1904 0.2951713.387868.2.1335%, 1903 0.28905.3.460149.1.815%, 1902 0.2838533.522.956.1.8943%, 1901 0.2785753.5896933.02555%, 1900 0.2703953.69830, 0.6278%, 1899 0.2687073.6 0.721519.7757%, 1898 0.2640193.7876 1897 0.259313.8560711.8396%, 1896 0.2546473.927 007 1895 0.2499594.0006601.9114%, 1894 0.2452714.0771281.9486%, 1893 0.2405834.156576 1892 0.2358984.239118 2.0276%, 1891 0.2312104.32507 2.6465%, 1890 0.2525494.4395351.5328%, 1889 0.22184.507585.2.0811%, 1888 0.2173254.601393.2.1599%, 1887 0.2127314.7007772.2075%, 1886 0.2081364.8045482.259.2%, 1885 0.2035384.9130912.3095%, 1884 0.1989435.0265612.3641%, 1883 0.1943495.145396 1882 0.1897545.269985.2.4815%, 1881 0.1851595.4007593.7644%, 1880 0.1784425.6040650.9432%, 1879 0.1767755.6569242.146%, 1878 0.1730605.7783432.1913%, 1877 0.1693495.9049642.2426%, 1876 0.1656356.0373892.2941%, 1875 0.1619206.1758902.3456%, 1874 0.1582096.320752.443%, 1873 0.1544946.4727222.4635%, 1872 0.1507806.6321812.5258%, 1871 0.1470656.7996955.9947%, 1870 0.1387487.207314 to 1869 0.14287.1282662.193%, 1868 0.1372767.285 0.45862.2394%, 1867 0.1342697.4477182.2935%, 1866 0.1312597.6185312.3445%, 1865 0.1282527.7971462.4037%, 1864 0.1252427.9845652.4599%, 1863 0.1222358.180976.2.525%, 1862 0.1192485.387547.2.587%, 1861 0.1621888.6045532.9504%, 1860 0.12887.8584222.4012%, 1859 0.1024090.0711342.762%, 1858 0.1072769.3217432.841%, 1857 0.1043129.5865932.923%, 1856 0.11349.8669323.061%, 1855 0.198381110.1645333.161%, 1854 0.194802493.2056%, 1853 0.192454110.8162073.318%, 1852 0.0894911.1744173.4252%, 1851 0.086526111.5571664.010%, 1850 0.0831912.0206782.3254%, 1849 0.081291912.3002032.7841%, 1848 0.079099712.6426512.859%, 1847 0.0768913.041.062.9432%, 1846 0.0747013.3868383.032%, 1845 0.0725013.7927813.132.5%, 1844 0.0703014.22484.3.228%, 1843 0.0681014.6840693.336%, 1842 0.0659021739383.451%, 1841 0.0637415.6976203.8105%, 1840 0.061366616.2957762.38661%, 1839 0.0599616.6846022.5824%, 1838 0.0584217.115464.2.657%, 1837 0.0569147.5702772.3 0.7232%, 1836 0.055405 18.048752 1835 0.053897 18.554016 1834 0.052384 19.089693 1833 0.050875 19.655832 3.0563% 1832 0.049367 20.256578 3.1604% 1831 0.047854 20.896772 3.4660% 1830 0.046251 21.62147 2.4653% 1829 0.045138 22.154071 2.6804% 1828 0.043960 22.7478 10.3427% 1827 0.039840 25.100622 to 4.2314% 1826 0.041600 24.038506 2.9150% 1825 0.040422 24.739237 1824 0.039243 325.4820493.0955% 1823 0.038065 26.270847 3.1944% 1822 0.036887 27.110413 3.3102% 1821 0.035705 28.007435 3.2277% 1820 0.034588 28.911442 2.6573% 1819 0.033693 29.679699 2.6261% 1818 0.032831 30.459120 2.6969% 1817 0.031969 31.28058 to 2.7717% 1816 0.031107 32.147580 2.8507% 1815 0.030244 33.06410 2.9343% 1814 0.029382 34.03422 3.0231% 1813 0.028520 35.0630933.1039% 1812 0.0276661 36.151415 3.2172% 1811 0.0267999 37.314464 3.0969% 1810 0.0259994 38.470061 2.9144% 1809 0.0252558 39.5912 to 42.8225% 1808 0.0245655 40.70867 to 2.9199% 1807 0.02386 41.897336 2.9918% 1806 0.02317 43.1508 1804 3.0841%, 1805 0.02 to 481 44.481607 3.18 to 2%, 1804 0.02 1788 45.897 098 3.2868%, 1803 0.02 1095 47.4056 373.3985%, 1802 0.02 04 01 49.016 711 3.5180%, 1801 0.0197 08 50.74 1141 3.3999%, 1800 0.01906 052.466 3132.8419%, 1799 0.01853 353.957 3362.7485%, 1798 0.01803 755.44033 02.8261%, 1797 0.01754 257.007 3.7832%, 1796 0.01690 to 59.163 2.1272%, 1795 0.01655 60.422 3.08779%, 1794 0.01605 62.2881885 3.1625%, 1793 0.01556 64.25805 3.2904%, 1792 0.01506